Okay, are you ready for another one? This DIY is really fun. We are using some of those microfiber dusting pads or mop pads from the Dollar Tree, one of these chalkboard signs. I had a long piece of wood from a sign that kind of fell apart, so kind of using a trash to treasure on that, and a knob from a Walmart. Now, I want to use the back, and of course, the label on this is usually the only challenging thing. And so I do have to use a little Goo Gone to clean off the back of this chalkboard, but I love DIYing with these from Dollar Tree because they are nice and flat, not bowed, and they're a nice big size as well. What I want to do is make this sign into an Uncle Sam gnome. So I go over the black chalkboard with just some ivory chalk paint, trying to get as good a coverage as I can. I want my giant, Uncle Sam to have like a red and white striped hat. So once I get the black covered, I think we're good to go. Now for the next piece, I just had this. This was, I have no idea, some kind of decor piece that fell apart and I saved it. But you could totally use the craft wood from the Dollar Tree, or you could also use one of those long, chunky signs that are about the same size from Dollar Tree for this part of the hat. I just wanted something to make a brim of the hat. And so I paint the top of that white to cover that up. Now it's time for stripes. So I'm just going to use some Dollar Tree painter's tape, and we're just going to tape off some vertical stripes on this. And I'm just going to use little pieces of the tape for a spacer so we can make sure that I get these little stripes straight on here. Just moving it as I go. And now we can just go on here and paint some red stripes. I'm using that crimson red chalk paint and just going all the way down. I want most of the sign to be the hat. So a long rectangular hat, which is kind of why I went with that size of a sign. Now for the brim of the hat, I thought we'd do something fun. I wanted to see if I could use some of these little stickers from the Dollar Tree instead of my Cricut, to kind of give you guys another option of how you could do stars on your projects. And it worked. I think it was definitely more work than if I would use my Cricut. But what I do is I just peel off the backing and I'm cutting them into strips of the little stars. And then I'm going to use transfer paper to put them on there, kind of like I would do with Cricut vinyl. So I'm just kind of lining those up, one right on top of each other, so we can have like 2 rows of stars. Now, that way it's going to leave the white stars on there when I go to paint this. Need a few more, so I'm going to do a few more rows here, and then I can paint over that, and then I can just weed off all of the little star stickers, leaving the little white stickers below. I guess you could do it the reverse way too, where you could use the backing to create a stencil. But I had already painted it white, so I wanted white stars, so we're just going to do it this way. And it did work. I just trying to make sure that they are all good and down, and then I just have to weed them all off. That was probably the only hard part. So again, I'm using agave blue for a light beachy blue instead of a traditional navy. But if you wanted to do traditional colors for yours, you totally could. But of course, I want mine to be a beachy little Uncle Sam, because we're doing coastal patriotic here. And then just using my weeder, I am just going to weed all those off. So that was probably the only time-consuming part. It did work. I don't know if I would do it again, but I was just trying to show you guys an option, because I know not all of you guys do have Cricuts. And it's just a great way to get a star pattern on something for the 4th of July. We'll speed that way up. I'm also going to kind of rough it up a little bit with my sandpaper, kind of distress the edges. It was already red, so I left the sides red. And that kind of goes with the theme. I take off the painter's tape here on my Uncle Sam hat. Did have a little bit of crazy bleeding going on down here at the bottom, but this is going to be the bottom of my hat. And so a lot of that's going to be covered anyway, but I am touching up any areas that I think might be visible. I want to attach a long beard to the Uncle Sam hat and then have the brim of the hat. And I kind of want to make it like a gonk or a gnome where you only see the nose, not the eyes. So, of course, I distressed it. I distressed it with ivory all over just to give that coastal farmhouse vibe and kind of make it look a little bit roughed up. Now for the nose, I'm going to use a cabinet knob that I got really cheap at Dollar Tree. I'm just kind of putting my board up on some blocks here so that I can drill through that and not go through my silicone mat. But I'm just going to put like, like a little cabinet doorknob on there for the nose. But, you could totally use like a big wood bead or anything round for the nose. I thought this would be a fun little touch. And since it's already got a screw on the back, I might as well just use that to attach it to my sign. And so that's what we're going to do. I'm feeding the screw through the back and attaching the little knob on top. Now, the screw that came with my knob was like way too big, so I switched it out for a smaller one that I happened to have, and that worked out perfectly. So I think this is the only time I've used a cabinet knob for a gnome nose, but it worked out really well. Now here is the brim of the hat. I'm just making sure that's going to fit on there, but we probably should get started on the little gnome or gonk beard. We are using 2 of the microfiber mop heads from the cleaning aisle at the Dollar Tree, and I want to kind of sandwich them kind of around our little nose like that, hanging them down vertically to make a large gnome beard. This actually turned out to be a pretty large piece, but it's so much fun. I really love it for 4th of July. So I'm just going to attach the microfiber mop head to the bottom of the chalkboard with some hot glue. And it worked out perfectly for the size of this sign, the width of my beard. And since it's 2 pieces, I could just sandwich the little nose right in between. Like that. Now, I don't want like the beard to be separated, and so I thought I could use something to give it a little structure in the back and make sure the 2 mop heads stay together. So I'm just using some white cardstock that I had, and I just kind of cut that down to size and hot glue that to the back, and that way it's going to keep both the mop heads together. There won't be any gapping and give a little bit of structure to that beard. So cute. It's very square though, so we're gonna like kind of make it pointy, kind of like I think like an Uncle Sam beard would be, just by cutting that mop head. Now when you do cut those mop heads, you do get a little bit of shedding there. I'm just gonna trim it up and make it look nice. And then I'm gonna go ahead on the other side and cut that into a point too. And it really made it look more like an Uncle Sam beard and less like just a big fluffy square. And I just trim it until I'm happy with that little gnome. I'm not going to do much else to his beard. I do want to put the brim of the hat over the top of his beard, which is going to come down, covering his eyes and overlapping the microfiber mop head just a little bit. I thought I could kind of smush it down. I did find I left maybe a little bit too much beard to get all the way down to the little knob for the nose. So I'm just going to trim it up a little bit here on the top so that I have room to kind of smush this down and make it look like, because I didn't really want it to sit on top of it. I wanted to glue that to the actual sign. So just trimming it up as necessary where I can get that down enough. And I'm going to use wood glue to attach mine down. Don't know why I went so far over, but I also am going to use a combination of hot glue too. That way it's going to make it have a temporary hold and a long-term hold on the back of that. Now, the back of this is kind of a hot mess because I didn't really finish the back of the sign first. I do clean that up a little bit with a little cardstock that I had left over. But, you could totally paint it back there too. And I am going to use a little starfish to finish off his hat. Then I thought like a little burlap ribbon to go around the base of his hat would be really cute too. I don't really want you to be able to see through it though, so I'm going to double it up to make it a little bit thicker. And this is just some burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree. And I just glued 2 on the back where I can just wrap those around my side. just a few more coastal touches, the burlap and the starfish from the Shore Living line. So I just pull that tight, and then we're just going to glue the other two on this side. Just something you have to be careful when you're working with the burlap. You're definitely going to be able to see through it. So sometimes you do have to layer them like that. I'm going to go ahead and use some twine to reattach my hanger, knotting that off in the front. And this is one of my favorite 4th of July decorations. It's so fun. There's the rest of my cardstock, and I'm just going to glue that to the back. It cleaned it up a little bit, but again, if you want yours to be beautiful back there, you might want to paint it or cover it with some contact paper. So the last step is just a starfish. Just going to kind of glue that over on one side of his hat. And the starfish can be a little tricky. You kind of got to see which rays are going to kind of be touching down. And those are the ones you're going to need to glue down. And there is our little coastal Uncle Sam with his little starfish and his stripes and stars. I think he's so cute and he's so fun. You could use this on your front door. I just use this as a wall hanging in my house. I love the colors.